Good morning, everyone, and thank you for coming on your Sunday morning when there are so many other wonderful things you could be doing on a Sunday morning in Goa. Maybe you're here because, like many of us, you have a deep love for Goa, for its beautiful rivers and kazans and hills and beaches and wildlife and cultural heritage and the incredible quality of life that makes it so special and unique. The best of both of villages and urban, the best of tradition and modernity, the best of what India and the local indigenous context has to offer, and access to the international and national space. It's a very, very important place, a unique place. And what we all feel is a sense of real heartbreak at what we see happening around us. That the form of development that is taking place isn't really tending to or caring for the things that we love about Goa. And so Act for Goa, which is a platform to bring different stakeholders together for the sustainability of the state, hosted a participatory workshop on the 23rd of November to really explore what is it that we love about Goa and what is it that we need to be planning for and what is possible. And what we discovered in that workshop is that the form of development that we're pursuing doesn't really necessarily feel like progress. It doesn't feel like it's taking care of the assets that I just mentioned, what we love. It doesn't feel like it's taking care of what the risks are that we currently face in terms of climate change, in terms of urbanization, and it doesn't really take account for the fact that we've learned a lot about what modernization can do in its downsides. So the downsides of a concrete jungle, the downsides of overdevelopment. And we've discovered that actually the systems for caring, the systems of governance, are not fit for purpose. But what we also discovered at that meeting was that there's a huge number of very talented and experienced people who are already working on the ground on ways to do it differently. And I'm very honored to be on the platform here with 4 of such people, and I know there are many other of you in the audience who are working on such agendas. So, my name is Johann Fernandes. I work in sustainability. I work in stakeholder engagement and mobilizing different stakeholders for sustainable development. I'm here with, first we're going to hear this morning from Dean DCruz, architect, many of you know, an advocate for a better form of planning. Dean's going to give us an overview at the state level of the context, of our current context of planning and how it might need to change. Then we're going to hear from Johann, who's co-founder of Climate X Capital, which is looking at investment in, and he'll probably explain more, but how do we invest in the risks and opportunities that the climate crisis offers. Then we're going to hear from Malcolm, who's co-founder or founder of Spatialcraft, who's going to help us understand what can data do, and who's working already to understand how data can really help the planning process. And then last but not least, we'll hear from Vigilia, who spent years tirelessly working in her community and has extra punch of Moira, who can really ground us in what's happening on the ground, what's possible, and what needs to change. And then we'll come to you, the audience, to get some additional reflections. I'm also before we start, very honored to have Santosh and Ajay at the back there from Clouds and Arrows, who have this wonderful skill called graphic recording, and they will take the words spoken and they will make a beautiful picture in it. So a picture tells 1,000 words. They will help us tell the story of what we're learning here through pictures. And then I'd like to just introduce Maya D'Souza, who's there, who's also co-director with me of Act for Goa, and we have founders of Act for Goa here too. But I'd now like to just pause with the introductions and move into the content. So I'd like to invite Dean, if you could give us that big picture. Thank you.
Well, that's Goa. Green, as you know, and under threat. I mean, Goa is special to all its old settlers and new settlers because there's a certain connection that we have to the place that makes us want to protect it. But Goa is under tremendous threat. And this is no normal presentation over here. This is really a call for action because we can see the devastation taking place in Goa, and it's time that we really acted upon it. That's not daunting actually, but it's been done before. About almost 2 decades ago, there was a new regional plan for Goa, which was called the 2011 plan. And enough people realized this was extremely devastating for Goa. So a group of people got together and started actually analyzing this plan and wondering how do you put it across to normal people, because the plan is a very technical document, there's colors on it, and can't figure out what's really happening in it. And so these images, of course, were put together, Red Media was part of it, and to actually show people what is going to happen to Goa. This is, of course, Barga Hill. And the moment they connected to something which they had, an emotional connection with, they said this should not happen. And in that moment, people realized that they needed to come together. There were 8,000 people that came on the streets in Margao and Panjim. There were 4 Parsi lawyers that offered their services pro bono, that we will fight your case. And suddenly there was this movement that took place, and for the first time in the history of India, a regional plan was denotified. And that really, put us on the path to create a new regional plan. But how do you create a new regional plan? So the Goa Bachao Abhiyan actually put together a document that went to the people, that showed what is planning all about, in a simplified manner that shows planning takes a number of issues in it, whether it's a land use thing, whether it's the FAR, the building heights, the densities. All these technical attributes were put together in a document that people could understand. And the plan was to incorporate a people's participative method, which basically planning starts from bottom up. So that started sort of rolling out. Since I was one of the activists as part of the thing, as I would say punishment, I was put on to prepare the new regional plan for Goa. And I realized that actually preparing a new plan is far more difficult than stopping an old one. But what is a regional plan? A regional plan is actually a document that maps all the data that you have, whether it's it's water bodies, it's land, it's fields, it's forests, it's hills, it's CRZ areas, and all its assets, whether it's in industry or skill bases, and also a vision document. Where do we want to go as a state, and how do we take it forward? So this document, of course, had to have various attributes to it. Okay. It had to take into account, of course, all the eco-sensitive zones, the economic development of the area. For example, in regional plan, we looked at one of the main drivers of development is really the road networks, road and rail networks, inland waterways maybe. So we actually proposed that we pull the road network actually inland. Goa, as you know, is known as to be almost a coastal state. And the development has been taking place mainly around the coast, and it's completely overheated. Therefore, we see land prices and development taking place in this coastal area. So our proposal was to pull it back into the hinterland and actually connect it up to Karnataka through Dharmandara, and create a new node for development where the old mining belt was. Because at that point in time, mining and SEZs were being stopped by the government through people's pressure. And we needed a new node for development that was very central to Goa and take away the pressure from the coastal areas. So we proposed actually pulling this road inland and then connecting it to Karnataka for economic development as well. So that, and along junctions of road and rail and road and water, whatever, we create new nodes for development. Because all the cities that we're fitting, whether it's Panjim, Margao, were becoming extremely excessively developed, and therefore we need new nodes for actually to take that pressure out, new nodes for industry, new nodes for settlement along these new connections. And this goes into a process of people actually taking part. So the plans actually, base plans were done based on what was existing in each village, were sent to every village, and the people actually put together a plan. So basically, like this is the village of Bara, which is just next to my village of Saliga, where the people actually sat down, looked at their plan, and they started mapping everything that was dear to them. They mapped animal pathways, they mapped nature trails, they mapped bird nesting sites, and here they mapped every single large banyan tree in the village. And so that immediately gave an emotional connect to the village. So it is possible for people to actually take part in planning. It's just a question of capacity building and how do we get people on board to look at it. Well, today we are faced with some really scam, I would say, policies that have come to place. There is 17.2, which of course just says there's an error in the regional plan, and therefore we need to correct it. These errors are suddenly discovered as fields, forests, everything. It's an error, and these were protected in the old regional plan of 2021. There is 39A, which says that we can convert anything, regardless of what the status of the land is, the eco-sensitive land is, we can convert anything. And another even more disastrous one is that the FAR is now unlimited. They first put a clause that said FAR can go up and up to 20%. And then quietly the next is that it says they cancel the 20%. That means the FAR is completely unlimited, which means they have no control over the scale of development in Goa. While these are being challenged in court, and we hope for a good result on that, we also have to be prepared for a new regional plan, because once they get blocked, they're going to say, okay, fine, we're going to prepare a new regional plan. And before the government actually gets its act together, the people need to get their act together and say that this is how we want a new regional plan. And therefore it's up to us to actually say that this is the way we put a regional plan together. We're going to actually map all those eco-sensitive areas. We're going to map what's dear to us and ensure that the government follows the principle of the 73rd and 74th Amendment, which brings planning down to the people's level. This has been in the Constitution for decades now, but unfortunately not being implemented in Goa. Therefore, we need to push for that and ensure that this takes place. So it means data collection and a vision, and of course, people, you, being part of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean. So, you mentioned about data collection, people's participation. So, when you first did that process, I think there wasn't at that point the awareness of some of the risks that climate change and other environmental changes are going to bring. So I'd like to now introduce Johann to say what are some of the things that we need to be paying attention to for any future regional planning or state level planning.
Super. Thanks a lot. So firstly, I think I'll just share a bit about what we do at Climate Capital, and then I'll just show you a couple of different maps that talk about risks in Goa, but then we'll also talk about opportunities in Goa, right? So essentially, Johann here, and we started Climate Capital a couple of years ago. It's an organization that supports climate tech startups in India, access capital across grants, equity, and debt, and connecting them to different investors in India and abroad, right? So what we've seen over the last couple of years is that climate tech as an opportunity has become very apparent. And so we set up this organization to sort of solve for the information asymmetry problem that exists with accessing information about climate capital, more specifically. We operate all across India, but a big focus now has been Goa and other sort of coastal sort of areas. We also run a community of climate investors and climate startups. So essentially, if we want to do and if we need to do climate pilots in the state of Goa, we have access to these inventors. We also have access to these investors who can come and fund different opportunities in the state of Goa. So what I'll sort of do now is I will just quickly show you a tool. It's called the En-ROADS tool, and it was created at MIT in the US. So just give me a second while I pull this up. So that's the tool. What is an IAM? It's basically a model that maps data from different sources, right? So you have data from the International Energy Agency, but you also have data from the IPCC, right? Which is the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. Malcolm, who will come in after me, will talk about why is it important to have data at the local level, right? So data at the Goa level. This is data at the global level, and so there's a gap that obviously exists. But essentially, I'll tell you what's happening here, right? So there are multiple different sort of impacts that are happening and will continue to happen. We've obviously seen what's happened in LA with the wildfires and in different parts of the world. But essentially, the first thing I want to show you is risks because of flooding and sea level rise, right? So we'll give it maybe, I think, 10 seconds for this to load. And now that it has loaded, I will put in Goa here. And what this map essentially shows you is, different regions in Goa that is at the risk of flooding, right? So, what a lot of different plans don't account for is climate risk and climate impacts. What this shows you right now is still 2100, which parts of Goa will flood. But obviously, if we don't solve for climate change, flooding will continue to happen forever, right? So, I'm going to show you long-term equilibrium, and then we can see different parts of Goa that will get flooded, right? So I don't know how many of you stay in coastal areas, how many of you stay in Mandalay, in Saligaon, in Nadona, Mora, and so on, but you can essentially use this map to see, if your region and house is at the risk of flooding. Obviously, what we've seen with race margos, with the hill cutting and so on, a lot of those properties will end up going underwater, which is apparent and sad, but I guess that's the reality, right? So this is one map that shows us what's happening. You also have different maps at this point in time that shows you extreme heat, right? So if I again were to show you Goa, you can look at different parts in Goa that will have different forms of heating because of climate change. So give me 1 second again. So what this map again tells us is that the pink regions essentially will have at least 181 days above your sort of normal. What this leads to is basically heat stress, so your body will essentially not be able to adapt. That will lead to a lot of people dying, unfortunately, right? So we also have maps here that talk about how many people will end up dying in different parts of the world. Maybe I won't show that to you now, maybe we'll need like a separate session to go through this map, but I'll probably pause here to sort of, talk about maybe opportunities in the state.
Just a quick query, flooding, long-term equilibrium?
It basically says that, so flooding will continue, global warming will continue unless we stop global warming, right? So essentially, reducing our fossil fuel emissions, moving from, coal, petrol, diesel, to renewable energy. So if we don't stop doing that, then global warming will continue and flooding will happen after 2100 as well. So this shows you long-term equilibrium, which is basically 2200, 2300, 2400. Obviously we won't be around, but our grandchildren and their grandchildren might be around, and so therefore it's important to think about long-term future of Goa. Another sort of impact is, water stress, and we've seen that happen in different parts of Goa. Essentially, we've seen that happen in Asagaon as well. There was also an analysis that spoke about, that 38 registered open wells in Goa saw at least 85% decline in water, right? And that will happen because of climate change, and because if you don't end up planning, a lot of us will end up, not having basic resources to, to food, to water, to good quality air, and so on. Another important loss is essentially biodiversity loss, and so, mangroves, coral reefs, Western Ghats are at risk at this point in time. What is also at risk is basically livelihoods, which is of, fishermen communities, and so on. And so, therefore, if you were to talk about, different opportunities, I think there are two kinds of opportunities. One is opportunities that come in because of mitigation, which is essentially reducing carbon emissions right now, right? So one of the biggest opportunities is in renewable energy, and if you sort of read the draft climate action plan, more than 95% of energy we basically import from other states, right? And we've seen those 3 mega infrastructure projects that were stopped by the people of Goa. A lot of that energy we buy from Karnataka, right? So the biggest opportunity is becoming self-reliant and self-independent. And so therefore, solar energy, wind energy tend to be different opportunities. Goa as a state tends to get more than 5 to 8 hours of direct sunlight every day. So essentially, can we have policies, can we incentivize people to essentially have solar rooftop projects? And this is again, it will help us in becoming climate resilient over the long term, right? Because we'll be resilient from floods, from droughts, from wildfires, from cyclones, and so on and so forth. Another sort of opportunity tends to be green jobs and economic opportunities, because a lot of these sunrise sectors, which is in the solar space, in the electric mobility space, in the agri-tech space, a lot of Goans can essentially be, there are opportunities for green jobs. So essentially training locals in these new sort of sunrise sectors and ensuring that they move from your conventional sectors to these new sectors and so on, right? I think the last thing that I'll sort of touch upon is in the agriculture space, because agri, is also a very big space where there are impacts of climate change, and so therefore promoting, climate resilient crops tends to be one sort of big opportunity in this state. Organic and regenerative farming tends to be another very big opportunity, but also I think setting a vision for an agro-tourism kind of a vision for Goa can also be something that we haven't explored, but I think that we can explore going forward. Green buildings is another, I think, big area, but I won't maybe delve into it much because we have Dean on the panel, and I think maybe he can, in Q&A, speak a bit more about green buildings. So maybe I'll pause here, but maybe very happy to explore, questions going forward.
Thank you, Johann. So we've just heard a little bit about some of the really horrifying risks, but also some of the opportunities that can come from a more conscious form of planning for the future. And I'm going to hand over now to Malcolm, who's already doing some fantastic work using data to avail of these opportunities and support people. So I'm going to hand you the floor now, Malcolm. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanna. Hello, everyone. Good morning. I'm going to share with you 3 stories from my experiences, and I'm going to cover 3 key aspects. That is how technology can bring in people to participate in planning, how technology can bring in transparency and good governance, and third one is how technology can revive economy. So I'm going to give some specific examples from my experiences. Okay, so starting with my journey with maps begin in 2019 when there was a lot of noise about coastal zone regulations. So a set of villagers came to me saying that they want to map the resources. So at that time, our response was to mobilize people. So I got my students, I got people from the villages, which included farmers, toddy tappers, fishermen, village panchas. They all went to the ground, documenting their resources. With the power of a mobile phone, they were clicking photos and geotagging their assets. The end result was they prepared a plan, which was a people's CRZ plan, and through their village panchayat, this was submitted to the government. And something remarkable happened after that. That is, the government officials were then forced to come on the ground and verify the facts, because the plans that were prepared missed a lot of important features, which were actually very important for the livelihood of the people. So this happened, and this proved to me that the transformative power that technology can have in bringing people into planning. So today, if you see, in Goa, we have a lot of plans: CRZ plan, regional plan, outline development plan, the government survey plan. All these plans of the same area create confusion in the mind of people. And to make matters worse, these are done by agencies from outside, and they impact the lives of people directly without their involvement. So that creates more distance between the people and the plans. Okay, so this is where technology can play a big role. Today, with the help of GIS technology or geospatial technology, we can deploy hundreds of volunteers on the ground at the same time to collect thousands of data points, which can then be given to the experts to curate and filter to prepare these plans. So this is possible today with technology. So this is the first part. Now coming to the second part, the need for validation and transparency. So I'll give you specific examples. Our system should be such that it even deters the most greedy and most unethical investors to come to go and make the wrong decision of investing in the wrong place. Now, what is happening? We have the regional plan which marks no development slopes. Now you might think that no development slopes, you cannot do anything. But they are subject to field verification. And we often find that when you actually go and physically survey the ground, most of these no development zone will not qualify as no development slopes. Second thing is about the private forest. Again, the notification list this private forest as survey numbers. But you will find when you go on the ground, the survey numbers, the area that they occupy, is not just forest. There are a lot of other things which keeps ambiguities. So tomorrow if you want to validate, even the investor wants to validate, there is no means for the investor to know what is the ground reality. And I have been in meetings where I have had investors on one side and the brokers and agents on another side, trying to convince them that it's a good investment opportunity. Just like how many ordinary citizens get scammed many times, do din mein paisa double kind of scheme. So we need to have such strong system that people can validate before they invest. Okay. So what I'm trying to say is the government should prioritize transparency. At least we could start by identifying the most critical areas, say the private forest or no development slope, and mark them with precision on the ground and take their coordinate information and then put this out in public domain so that people can then validate it, or even the investors are aware of this. And I'd like to give you a small example showing one of the applications which I have made. So this is one such plan. So outline development plan. Can you zoom into the top right section?
Yeah.
So this is an outline development plan of Margao. You can see. Now typically these plans are published and then people try to make sense of them as to what is there in this plan and then where they are located, right? But with the help of technology, I can tell you how people can know where they are and what is there in the plan. They can self-validate. So I'd like you to focus on the area. Just go down. So zoom in at the blue part. So everybody knows Collectorate building in South Goa, right? So we'll just zoom into that part, right? Now, with the help of a slider below, you will see, validate this plan with what is actually on the ground. Can you move the slider down? So the same place now you see in the satellite image. And what do you see? Can you identify? You see agricultural fields, right? And when you move the slider again, you see what's there on the plan. A very simple tool, a very simple technique. You can just validate what is going to come, right? There are many more features and functionality here wherein we could allow citizens to actually use this on their mobile device and know where they are standing and what's there on the plan. They can even give specific suggestions by just clicking on this map, which will then go to the planners. So this is possible today. So this will address the second part when I say data validation and transparency. Now let me go to the third part, which is GIS, how geospatial technology can revive our economy. I'll give you one example where technology can help in actually planning and revival of economy. I like to focus on agricultural sector. We know a large tracts of agricultural land in Goa are today unutilized, right? With the help of technology, we can actually quantify the amount of agricultural land available and further, say, analyze it to identify which land from the available agricultural land is actually cultivated and which is not cultivated. And when we quantify these figures, they will give us the insight wherein we will be able to plan better and implement better. Like for example, if we have to cultivate the entire available agricultural land in the village, how much of seeds do we have to procure? How many days of tractor services will require? How much is the possible yield from this particular village? Will that be sufficient to have a milling plant, a packaging unit? And when I analyze this data for one village, I realize that one village, when it is doing agriculture, it can generate revenue anywhere from 10 to 15 CR on an average, supporting more than 300 professionals in one village itself. And when I came to realize this figure, I found it mind-blowing, and I think this is something that we can do, and I'd like to show you. So this is a map of Kurtorim village, which is in South Goa, where exactly we have done an analysis of the agricultural land. So essentially, this map tells you the story of agriculture in a particular village. Now this is not just a visual representation. Here the color code tells you the areas that were cultivated. For example, the green ones were the cultivated fields, as per, these are the fields which are in the official government records. The orange ones were not cultivated, and the red ones have ceased to become agricultural fields, but in the government record they still feature as agricultural fields. So when we can now visually analyze, we can even trace the owners of those fields and maybe have a community farmers to go there and speak to them and try and get to revive those fields. And with the figures, so here we have the figures, so these are the legends, and these are the figures. Once we have the figures, we can really work out all the logistics of actually having a very good agricultural revival in the village. So this is just one example. We could just do a lot when it comes to planning, whether it's agriculture or it's infrastructure or just protecting the natural resources of a village. And I have seen one example in Vetambali village where I come from, where the motive of starting agricultural revival was to protect the fields from the land sharks. We are in the coastal, we are a coastal village, and where the fields are, there's eye of the hotel lobby. So with the intention of protecting the agricultural fields from becoming concretized, the farmers have taken the initiative to revive them. And this is just one story from one village. I think a lot more villages can do this. That's all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you, Malcolm, for showing us what's already being discovered about how good data, good tech, it can be used for economic planning as well as structural type. Thank you. So now I'm going to hand the floor to Vigilia, who's going to share some of her experience and her perspectives from working on the ground at the panchayat level. Thank you.
Hi, that's the last one. We are in the afternoon already. We've heard Dean, Johann and Malcolm, and I think we got the correct picture of Goa is experiencing today. Is it? Did we get the correct picture of what Goa is experiencing today? Yeah?
Yeah.
So, what happened to the regional plan? Okay? Why it failed? Or rather, why the things that are happening today, the 39A, the 17.2, the 16Bs, why is it happening? We'll have to reflect on that. And if we don't reflect on that, we will not be able to arrive at a solution, or at least think about a solution. There are two words which I'm going to pick up from Dean's presentation: the Regional Plan 2021 and the 73rd and 74th Constitutional Amendment. And I'm going to go ahead from there. Of course, Johann and Malcolm gave us valuable inputs on climate change, how technology, data can be used to have a good plan. But we also need to see what is the policy that is in place. What are the laws, what are the rules that we have to follow while preparing a plan? If that is not in place, I don't think we can prepare a people-centric plan or a participatory plan or a sustainable plan. And that will be my focus, actually, from experience, from working in the panchayat and also working with the communities. I work with the farming community. I myself am a farmer. I have my fields in Korsue, Asnara, that mining area. And I've been working with the farmers over there to, the mining companies, how powerful they are. But, as a collective fight, we've been able to get a lot of favorable orders, positive orders from the government, then compensation, and of course during the COVID pandemic time, our work slowed down, but now we are focusing on mitigation and restoration of the fields. Okay, that is one thing that, my experience with the communities that I would like to share. Now, why are all these things happening? That is because we don't have a good plan. The good plan came in 2021 because with the People's Power, 2011 was scrapped. So that showed us the People's Power. So what happened to the RP 2021? When 2021 was being prepared, there were certain voices which demanded that the plan be prepared as per the provisions of the 73rd and 74th Constitutional Amendment. If that was done, this 39A and 17.2 and 16B would not have happened. And I think we need to take the responsibility and blame ourselves because this did not happen. If that had happened at that point of time, I don't think we would be facing this because it would be a quick fix solution. Now we don't know if for every case that is coming up, it has to be challenged in court.
Can you explain a bit the 73rd, 74th? Because a lot of people don't understand what that is.
Okay.
Just a little bit.
I think we can do it in the interaction because I've got my time constraints. Yeah. Okay. I can.
One sentence, just tell them. Yeah.
Yeah. Basically, all these amendments are done to arbitrarily convert land for settlement. And mostly it is in I think lakhs of square meters where haphazard constructions will come up. I think this is just just one phrase I would sum this up. Now when we talk about the 73rd and 74th Constitutional Amendment, I'm sure all of you all must be involved in planning in your own villages. No? Okay, fine. Okay, yeah. So what I'm saying is, what is 73rd and 74th Constitutional Amendment? There are a lot of misconceptions about it. 73rd and 74th Constitutional Amendment is basically giving power to the people. So there are misconceptions that this power is being to the panchayat, to the elected body. Okay? This is the major misconception that we need to clear. It is power to the people to plan their own village. Okay? So what I'm saying is, since planning is a constitutional right, and our state government is depriving us of that right, how do we move ahead? How do we demand that right? How do we claim our rights? I think that is a larger thing that we have to look at right now. There is also something called planning that is happening at the TCP level, Town and Country Planning Department. Also planning is happening at the panchayat level. Okay, so what is this planning all about? And how does it happen? So as I said, planning is a constitutional right. And it flows from the Constitution of India. So what does the Constitution say about planning? There shall be constituted in every state at the district level a district planning committee. Okay, now Goa has 2 districts, north and south. So there should be 2 district planning committees at the state level. And what will this committee do? Consolidate the plans prepared by the panchayats and the municipalities. So this is a bottom-up process. So the district planning committee will collect the plans from the panchayats, from the municipalities in its district and compile the draft plan for the district. Now in that same article, what do we get? Every district planning committee shall, in preparing the draft development plan, have regard to matters of common interest. So it will be, common interest will be all our natural resources, okay, including spatial planning. So that is our land, okay. Sharing of water. We have so many problems for water. Other physical and natural resources. So all the natural resources will come under this bottom-up plan. So every village, every panchayat will have to prepare its own plan, and that is the constitutional mandate. After that, this article of the Constitution 243ZD gets incorporated in the Goa Panchayat Raj Act. Okay? And again, it says the same thing. Every panchayat shall prepare every year a development plan and submitted to the Zilla Panchayat before such date and in such form as may be prescribed. Yeah? So there are rules to support this exercise. And in the rules, the rule 12 specifies that every year the Panchayat will prepare its development plan before and submit it to the Zilla Panchayat before 1st of November in Form 5. Okay. Now, what we just saw in 243 ZG of the Constitution is further down. Okay. If you look at 239, 7A1, it actually repeats the same thing what we read in the Constitution. Matters of common interest between the Zilla Panchayats and municipal councils in the district, including. Now, what does the word say over here? Special planning. Okay? So, how the word spatial in the Constitution is converted to special. And special is not defined. We don't know what is special. The state is giving us special treatment by taking away our rights. This is what is happening. And we the people are very happy about it, very quiet about it. Because the government is treating us special, no? We have not even realized what we are experiencing. Okay? Because we are saying, okay, we are getting special treatment from the government by depriving us of our constitutional rights. Okay? Now, if we look at this whole confusion, because in every village there is planning happening. Okay? But how is it happening? We don't know. Because to me, it is not happening under the Constitution. Yeah? Because the committees that are specified in the Panchayat Raj Act are the what development committees. It's a document, very, very detailed document which runs into 60 pages, okay, which you will not be able to look at here. Okay? So, the committees have to be formed at the Gram Sabha and the plans have to be prepared by the Gram Sabha. The misconception that these powers are given to the elected representatives is a misplaced thought. This is power to the people. Okay? So we have to, the Ward Development Committee is under the Constitution, under the Act. Okay? Now the planning that is happening in the villages, the GPDP, the BDC that we say, it is a guideline that is given by the Director of Panchayats. So what is the validity or what is the legislative value of the planning that is happening today? I think we need to look at that. We need to reflect on that. Why are we getting fooled? There is a critical thinking on. Basic rational thinking. Yeah? And this is how my time is up. I didn't understand it. Okay? So this is where we have to come about and correct this thing that is happening, because the Ward Development Committees are notified in 2008, and this new Village Development Committee, VDC, the whole conflict is between WDC and BDC. So it's very easy to bluff the people. Okay, because people don't realize the difference in WDC, VDC, and people get lost in it. So I don't have anything against the planning process that is being done for people's experience, for people to get experience about planning. Okay, but the planning, whatever is done by authorities, by departments, need to be done as per the mandate of the law. The VDC that is happening now are just guidelines that are given by the Director of Panchayats. So it is for the people to decide now whether they want to do it under the law or they want to do it under the guidelines of the Director of Panchayats, who doesn't have a proper data in the office. Because I put an RTI to the Director of Panchayat asking the names of all the Panchayats who are actually planning under the WDC. The director doesn't have data. Send it to the North Zilla office, South Zilla office, to the Jipar, because I also asked about the training programs. Because the capacity building has to be there. Okay? So, I got a copy of a plan which is not done under the WDC. Okay? The South Goa Zilla Panchayat has forwarded one plan to the DPC, South DPC, but when I went to the plan, okay, I mean there's nothing but planning in it. Okay, it's such a big document, I didn't carry it here, but yeah. Okay, so this is what is happening. So is this a plan or is it an eyewash? So basically, what I want to say is it every citizen's responsibility to reclaim their rights. If we don't claim our constitutional rights, we will be taken for a ride like this, and I don't think we'll be able to have a proper plan. So I would just say, if each one of us make a pledge today, see, I've given a few points here. I'm not saying like each one should take up all these points. Just one point. Okay, so if you're living in a village, I must uphold the interests of the village above all. Okay, fostering community spirit, harmony and peace. I shall fully respect the Constitution of India. Acquire knowledge of all the laws. Because this is happening today, why the government is able to bluff us, because we are not aware of the laws. Okay? The laws, rules and regulations, especially the Panchayat Raj Act, and fulfill all my duties as a citizen. Unless we take a responsibility to do this, I don't think we can expect the government to do anything. It has to be our responsibility. Each one of us need to be responsible. Okay? Then I shall participate in the Gram Sabha. That's the place where major decisions concerning the village are taken. So people need to participate in the Gram Sabha because that's the place where all the discussions regarding the village must take place. And not like, like whims and fancies, like, we have taken a Gram Sabha resolution, so it's binding on the panchayats and all that. See, that, this again is a very misplaced thing, that the resolution of the panchayat is binding, of the Gram Sabha is binding on the panchayat. We need to see whether that resolution is within the framework of law. I can go and take any resolution over there which is not within the framework of law and say, okay, I've taken a resolution, we've taken a Gram Sabha resolution. So that is why I say, we have to understand the Panchayat Raj Act, we have to understand the rules, we have to understand what are the powers, what are the functions, what are the duties. We cannot mix up powers and duties and functions. So, yeah.
You could just read them.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. So I think it's too much, should I?
No, just
Ten
read
points,
them.
yeah.
I think because they can't read.
Shall I read?
Just read them as they come and then we can come back to
Okay.
it and then we'll move.
So I shall participate in the implementation of the plan drawn up for my village, strictly observing the vision, mission statements, ascertaining an equitable economy. I shall promote transparency, accountability and participatory governance. I shall preserve the environment and ecology, protect the natural resources and ensure that they are used judiciously. I shall promote equality, protecting the interests of women, girls, aged, disabled, etc., ensuring that they are made beneficiaries of all schemes due to them. I shall ensure that proper hygiene, sanitation and all-round cleanliness is maintained, educating citizens on scientific disposal of all types of waste. I shall undertake voluntary labor for village development. And just one thing what I want to say is that when the RP 2021 was being prepared, there was a framework that was given by an organization with which I am connected, okay, for this, the Town and Country Planning Act, okay, to be replaced by a new act incorporating the 73rd and 24th Constitutional Amendment. It's already done, the framework is there. Now this was given in 2010 Okay. Now we have to add the aspects of climate change and all into that. Okay. Now these are the few things that we need to push. First thing, at the village level, the planning has to happen by the water development committees. Okay, unless that change comes about, we cannot even say like, no, we are doing it the right way. Okay, yeah.
Thank you.
So thank you very much for your patience.